Are you really happy with your career? Do you want to make more money or take your career to the next level? Well, if so, stay tuned because in this episode we talk about how to do exactly those things and more. What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of CodePorn. In this episode, we're talking with John Sonmez about his course Dev Career Boost, which is all about how to build or improve your career as a developer and also how to market yourself as a developer. John is the founder of SimpleProgrammer.com, and he also hosts the Get Up and Code podcast, but you might know him from his massive list of Pluralsight courses. John is a life coach for software developers. He helps software engineers, programmers, and other technical professionals boost their careers and live more fulfilled lives. So it's a great opportunity for us to get to talk with him in this episode. I've been following you for some time now, more recently interacting with you on Facebook. And, I get asked all the time when I'm at events, and I get at least, a couple of emails a week about how can I improve as a developer or how can I improve my career as a developer. I always try and give advice from my own experience because it's really all I have. But more recently, I've decided to make a series of videos and articles sharing my experience to help answer these questions. But I realized that you've been doing this for quite a while and you already have a course, a full-blown course that answers all these questions. And I realize it's a great resource for these developers that are looking for that sagely advice. So again, I thank you for coming on and, talking to us about the course. The name of the course is Dev Career Boost. What is the goal of this course, and what was your inspiration for putting in all of the work that you did to put this course together?
Okay, so it kind of started. The idea started when I was working on some Pluralsight courses. I've done a lot of like 55 Pluralsight courses, and so my next, my mode of operation was to keep on doing Pluralsight courses. And then I was thinking about what would be the most valuable thing I could do next. And I kept going back and I thought about how when I had first started a blog in was it like 2008 or 2009. Anyway, I had just a regular career and I was doing okay, but my career really started to take off like from the point that I created that blog and I started doing a little bit of marketing. Like I didn't even realize what I was doing at the time, but I started to build a little bit of a reputation by people coming to the blog, and then I started doing other things like appearing on podcasts and going and speaking at user groups and doing a lot of kind of things that I had not done earlier in my career. And that was kind of the thing that really boosted my career. All of a sudden I was getting job offers from different companies and I was having plenty of pipeline for consulting gigs if I wanted. And so what I really figured was, okay, how can I take all this that I learned, right? How could I help a developer and accelerate their career really quickly? And so that's where it came from, is I thought, okay, I got to stop, more important than doing the technical stuff that I've been doing, which is important for a developer, but more important than that, the thing that's going to impact them more and really help them with their career is to learn just a little bit of the basics of marketing themselves, of doing some self-promotion and the right way to, create content for people to basically provide value to others, and then you will get value back because I found no one else was teaching that. So I thought, okay, I need to stop everything I'm doing, I need to create a course on everything that I've learned and put that together.
Right. So on the website, you have an example talking about chefs in the culinary industry. And you give an example of the celebrity chefs. And the reason they make so much more money than other chefs is not because they're the best chef in the world, but because they're celebrity chefs. So is this course more about becoming the best of the best developer, or is it about becoming a celebrity developer? Is it kind of a combination of both?
I think it's really a combination of both. It's more geared towards the becoming a celebrity developer, although I realize that that's not the goal of every developer, and that's not attainable by every developer. Although there's plenty of room for building a name. It's really the idea is about building a personal brand and learning just some basics to market yourself and how much value that will be. I have this formula. I say that for a developer, your skill is important, right? But it gets multiplied by your style or your reputation or your name, right? So if you have no skill and you are just style and just showmanship, it's no good, right? Because 0 times 1 million is nothing. But if you have some skill, right, the best way to, rather than trying to increase the skill so much, is the most effective thing you could do for your career is to add a little bit of style, right? To add a little bit of name recognition, of putting yourself out there, and that's a multiplier. So that style multiplier, skill plus style, substance plus style, or time style equals your results. So that's really the idea, is just to teach you, okay, you have these skills, but how can you market those skills, right? Because it does no good to be that expert if no one knows about it. But the more of the reputation you build, and this is one of the things that I've really learned in my career, and especially in consulting, as my consulting rates have gone up and up, is that just having a little bit of a name, the higher, the bigger your name gets, the more that you're going to be able to make for just a regular job, and the higher you're going to be able to charge for an hourly rate.
Yeah, one thing that I've recognized through my own success in my career is that the things that I was doing early on, the blogging and the videos and giving the talks, these were things that I was just doing for my own personal gain. Because I like sharing information and, helping other developers, but also it helps solidify my own knowledge. Over time I was reaping huge rewards from that. I'd be in an interview with a prospective employer or a prospective client, and they'd say, I recognize you. You did this article on AOP. That's how I got started. I was specializing in AOP. And at one time I was talking with this developer for a technical interview, and he was asking me questions, and he says, what, you did that Pluralsight course. Okay, interview's over. Yep. Let's get you started. Okay, let's do it. The things that I was doing, I didn't realize that they're going to snowball into this effect over time. And so that's something that you talk about in the course. Now, did you model this course after your own success, or did you acquire tidbits from other successful developers as well?
So it was a combination of things. It was, I had experienced the same thing that you said. In fact, I always talk about how, the light clicked on when I walked into an interview, shook the interviewer's hand for a job I was applying for, and he said, "Oh, hey, I recognize you. I read your blog," and then it was like we didn't even interview. I just got the job. Like, we just talked, we just chatted about stuff, because it was like, so I was like, this is huge, this is very valuable. Like, this is, so a lot of it came from my experience, and it took me a longer time. What I figured was, it took me like 3 or 4 years to really build up enough of a reputation that it really started to click for me. But I wanted to go back and say, okay, now what I know, what I've learned about social media, what I've learned about creating content and giving value and doing video and podcasts and all this, and speaking at events, all of this stuff, if I can take that and now I can distill that into a simplified form of this is how I would do it now. And then I also took I did like interviews with John Papa and John Skeet and Uncle Bob Martin, and Christian Heelman, and all kinds of like really top notch. I was basically looking for the highest profile developers that I could find, at least some of them, and get their advice. So I put that in the course as well, and so that's, there's interviews with them. But that's kind of the idea, is like, okay, here's the playbook I would play by now from my past, plus all these other people that have achieved, the ability to market themselves in various ways and different paths, and here's it kind of combined, so that this gives you a way that if you follow this advice, you'll definitely build up a reputation. You might not be a famous Scott Hanselman or Bob Martin or whatever, but you'll build up enough of a reputation that you'll start to benefit from it. And I honestly think that for most people, for most average developers, this can mean doubling your salary. This can mean, doubling your consulting rates.
Exactly. And unfortunately, I don't think anybody could ever become the next Uncle Bob. That guy is...
Right.
He's amazing. He's crazy, but amazing.
Yeah.
So what would be the first step that you would recommend developers take if they're going to do something as soon as they stop watching this episode? What would it be to start improving their career?
Okay, well, I would say, and this is one of the examples I use all the time, is I'll do a talk on marketing yourself at different conferences and user groups and code camps. And when I go through the talk, one of the things that's most powerful, I think, is I'll say, okay, everyone who has a blog in this room, raise your hand. And about 50% of developers will raise their hand. And then I'll say, okay, now if you've updated your blog in the last month, keep your hand up. And, most of the hands will drop, right? There'll be maybe like 10% or less. And then I'll say, okay, now keep your hand up only if you've updated your blog in the last week. And then there's sometimes one hand and maybe two, but a lot of times zero out of like 100, right, in that room, or more, right, sometimes more. And so what I say then is, look, okay, if you have your hand up, you are the top 1%. just by creating a blog and keeping it up to date every week, you are doing better than 99% of other developers at getting their name out there and being and providing value to others and being a recognized name in the industry. So now this is an easy shortcut. Like, if you just want to excel past 99% developers, all you have to do is create a blog and update that blog every week. So that's where I'd start. I mean, obviously there's a lot more to doing that, and it's not, you have to be consistent and there's more to promoting that content. But just doing that is such a huge step. It's such a, if you go and apply for a job, and the very first thing someone's going to do is Google your name. And if your blog comes up and your blog is updated every week with tons of good information, and that interviewer starts going through that, they might have spent a 2-hour interview just reading your stuff. By the time you go into the interview, man, they're already sold on you. So this is a huge step I think that most developers are really ignoring. Is a lot of developers create blogs, but they don't keep them updated. And that's, I think that's really the key.
Yeah, I found that in many situations I've gone in for an interview, and we've been discussing a topic, and I say, you know what? I've written an article or a couple articles, or I did a video about that subject. Yep. And no matter what that article or video says, it gives you almost instant credibility. But, I've heard you talking about it, and I always hear it from other developers is, well, I don't really have anything to blog about. I don't know anything. And it's kind of weird because, I started out a long time ago. I would write code just because I wanted to. I'd document it, and then I'd put it up on Planet Source Code. I don't know if you remember that site. Super old site.
Oh, yeah.
And it just turned into blogging. And, they were just things that I do in my everyday job. I ran into a problem, and I just blog about it because it's just something to, again, solidify my own knowledge and share with other people. I mean, what's your advice for just getting out there and getting started? It's not really that hard, is it?
Yeah, it's not. And, I think there's a lot of excuses around, oh, I don't really know anything. I'm not an expert. I'm too new, whatever it is, I'm too old. You could come up with excuses. But the fact of the matter is we're all unique. We all have different specialties and skills and different reaches, right? And different style, right? I can reach a certain group of people that someone else might not be able to reach, and someone can reach someone that I'll never reach, So I think that's kind of the key, and also the different stages, right? Because a beginner can write to another beginner in a way that an expert can't, right? Because if you just went through something and you try to explain to someone else, they can relate. But sometimes you have this bias when you're an expert and you don't understand what it's like to be a beginner. So you can't actually teach effectively a beginner, or not as effectively as someone who just passed through. So there's various levels. The big thing I would say though for success is, well, number one, wherever you're at, just write about what you're doing and what interests you, and it's going to be valuable to someone. I promise you. The world is so big. The internet is so big. There's millions of developers, right? And then secondly, pick a specialization. This is advice that a lot of people don't like to hear, but you need to have a niche that you are targeting. Because the problem is, like, let's say that you're like, okay, I want to be superstar developer. I want to be like Bob Martin, who's kind of a generalist big name, or Scott Hanselman, right? That's a huge bar, right? It's huge competition, right? So you're a small fish in this big pond. What you want to do is you want to be a big fish in a small pond. So what you want to do in order to do that is you want to pick a niche. You want to pick something smaller, a smaller market. Like, let's say I want to be the Android list view guy. I am the guy who specializes on this one Android control called a list view, and that's what I blog about. That's what my whole site is based around. If you do that, you'll be a big fish in that small pond, and so everyone who wants to know about Android List View will find your blog. Everyone who watches YouTube videos about Android List View or searches on there will find you. If they want someone to speak at a conference about that specific topic, they're going to find you, right? And you submit for a conference or a magazine article, like everything, your whole way will be easier than if you say, well, I'm just a superstar developer and I'm really good at writing code, and so you should have me speak at your conference, or you should read my blog, or you should. I mean, you could get to that level eventually, but you have to start with very small markets and corner those. There's a lot of good examples. I don't know. Are you familiar with Troy Hunt?
Yes.
He's an example I use all the time now, because he is just dominating the .NET security space, right? Like, you cannot even speak about security in web applications in .NET space without mentioning his name. And he's really filled in that niche, and it's really benefited him a huge amount. So that's the other really key thing, is you've got to pick something that you specialize in, at least starting out. When you get, then you can start to generalize more and have success, but starting out, be very specific.
Mm-hmm. And you have a series of blog posts about specializing in a niche, and specifically, I believe one of them was it's not really pigeonholing yourself into something. That's one thing that I recommend in my Life of a Contractor video, is specialize in something, because, everybody has general C# skills, or at least .NET developers do. Everybody has general programming skills, but what is it that sets you apart from the next guy who's willing to do the same job for $5 cheaper? So it's that specialty that you have that makes you desirable. Okay. So what can you tell us about the course? What can developers expect from the Dev Career Boost course?
So the biggest thing that they can expect, I mean, there's a lot of content. It's like a 1.5 gigs, I think, of data. So it's huge. There's a lot of stuff in there. It's composed of books and video content, and then some kind of more like lighter infographic, in order to kind of break it up so that you're not just like reading this book forever. And so it's easy to get through the content, I think. The big thing that it contains in there is there's kind of a flagship book that gives you kind of the whole overall strategy of how do you market yourself as a software developer? How do you go and build a personal brand? How do you take that brand and spread the message? Because really what you have to do here, and it is that you have to build yourself a personal brand, right? Be in control of that. What do you represent? What is your, there's all of this behind building a personal brand. But then that's not good enough, because you have to create content, right, in order to spread that message. And this whole idea, it's all focused around this idea that you give away 90% of what you do and you charge for 10% of it. And by doing that, by giving people value, that's the real benefit. So the course is really focused on that. So it starts off with that flagship book. Then there's a book on how to use social media effectively. There's a component on basically getting your name out there, on doing things like podcasts, books, user group talks, all that kind of stuff. There's also a course in there which is how to build a personal brand, where I walk you through and tell you about branding and how that works. And then I also included how to set up a blog in order to make it as easy as possible, and give you a few different options on what you can do, because I think a blog is a really critical component. There's also a guide to networking that tells you how to, networking do's and don'ts, and then resume tips in there as well. There's another book in there about resume do's and don'ts as well. So so it's kind of the whole package for someone. Either, I always say there's the three kinds of developers: a career developer who is you want to get a raise, or maybe you want to just get a better job, right? This is going to help you to get a higher paying job, or to get a raise at your current job. There's the freelancer who, this is going to help you to get clients without you having to go and look for them. They're going to come to you, and that's going to mean a much higher hourly rate. And no overhead of trying to look for them. And then the entrepreneur who's really trying to build a product. And people do this wrong. What they do, a lot of entrepreneurs starting out, is they build a product and expect people to come. But what you need to do is learn how to build an audience. And this will teach you how to build an audience. Because once you have an audience, you can sell thousands of products to them. It doesn't matter so much what the product is, because people want to buy what you're selling because they want to buy you. And that's the key. So that's what this course is really designed, is to help those three types of developers.
Yeah, I went through the building a brand course or sub course, and it was really interesting. In the intro video, you had given a short story about your background and how you got started, and it was really interesting that I found it very similar to my own. But again, I didn't realize that I was building a brand, all the things that I was doing. And,
Right.
it just came to me one day. I went to a code camp down in Orange County one time, and I'm standing outside in the morning waiting for the event to start. And I'm just talking with someone. And in the background, I hear someone ask, "Hey, is that Dustin Davis? The Dustin Davis?" And I almost fell over. Like, really? Is he talking about me? Why am I the Dustin Davis? It just happens that that person was following me. They'd follow my blog and, my Pluralsight videos, and you just never know what that stuff is gonna do for you. But again, I wish I had had the information that's available in your course back in 2010, because I would have realized, hey, I am building a brand, so maybe I should do it a little bit more efficiently and effectively.
Yeah.
One of the things one of the best pieces of advice that I believe I give to developers when they ask me is to find a mentor. You don't have to go at this alone. And the Dev Career Boost course is kind of like a mentor in a box. It gives all of the sagely advice in all of the different areas that matter. And it's really such an effective course for developers, because you've taken what could take somebody 5 to 10 years to gather an experience, and you've bundled it all together in one lump sum, and they could go through it in a week and to benefit from all of the wisdom and experience. And it's really great. Now, one of the things that you also talked about in building a brand is reaching out to celebrities. This is something that I learned when I was doing the Mash This podcast with a couple of the guys. The people who you perceive as celebrities are really just people, just like, you and me.
Yeah.
They got started doing the blog posts and the videos, or in some cases, that one open source project that just shot them into the spotlight. You could do the same thing. And, going back to the whole mentor thing, don't be afraid to reach out to someone who you admire, because it could not only benefit you, your brand, but also personally. And I think that's something that's really important. What are your thoughts on finding a mentor and, reaching out to someone who is more prominent in the community and trying to build a relationship for that mentorship?
Yeah, I think it's really valuable. I think that there's kind of two aspects to it. There's this old mentor-mentee relationship kind of mindset. Some people go out and they think, okay, well, I'm going to go ask someone to be my mentor. And that really doesn't happen. I mean, if I get an email from someone and they're like, I want you to be my mentor, I'm like, well, that's a big commitment. Like, and I'm kind of shy. So that's the wrong approach, I think. The right approach, I think, is to pick someone out, and maybe several people out that you're learning from, that you follow, that you study what they're doing, that you start conversations with them, right? You comment on their blog post, or you say, or you email them and say, I really like this thing that you did. I had a question about this, being conscious of their time. And over time, that relationship builds. And if you're really, seeking knowledge, and you're really trying to give value to the person that you're seeking as a mentor as well, right? Because that's one of the keys. Is like, if you can bring something to the table, can you say, okay, well, could I help you with your blog posts, or could I help you research, or could I do this to, I noticed this, and because I just want to learn from you, I don't want to get paid, I just want to, whatever, then you're more likely to get accepted and to get that relationship going. Because I can tell you, anyone who's running their own business, or running kind of a big personal brand, is going to have a lot of work that they wouldn't mind some help with. So I think that's the key is, and sometimes you can't even establish that relationship, but you can just watch what they're doing, and you can follow them, and you can see, where are they at? What are they doing? How can I structure my life in a similar way? The other big aspect of that, I think, is mastermind groups, which is sort of like a mentoring each other type of situation. I've got a mastermind group that meets every Friday. In fact, we do a podcast called Entreprogrammers, and we just air the entire mastermind group. And it's basically, peers that are pretty close to you in level, maybe above or slightly below in success level of what you're trying to do. And you're getting together and you're mentoring each other on different areas, as you're going to have different expertise, and it's really a good support system, I think, because trying to go it all alone is what I did for a long time. And if I could go back and inject, like you said, some of the knowledge and wisdom and not go it alone, I would have been much more accelerated in my career.
Exactly. And In one of the previous episodes that I did, I talked about joining the developer community, going out to the user groups and code camps and interacting with your fellow developers. Because again, you don't want to go at it alone. It's very difficult and it's very lonely. And the benefit you get from going out and interacting with the community is just, it's unmeasurable, in my opinion, at least. So we were talking about building a brand. When you're building a brand, does that mean that you have to think about yourself as a business?
Exactly. Yeah, I think that's the key. I mean, you've hit the nail on the head there, which is that that we are businesses in ourselves. Even if we work for one employer, right? Then we have a single customer who pays us, happens to pay us on time every time, hopefully, right? And it's pretty secure relationship, but it's still a business. You're still a business. You still have an income and assets and expenses, right? And so that's the key, is I think to look at yourself like that. And when you start thinking about yourself being a business that could actually have more than one client also, right? Or could generate better value for that client, or charge a higher rate based on the market, right? You're in there in the market. Then you start thinking about things a little bit better. Like, how can you position yourself as a brand? Because everyone is a brand. Like, you can try and opt out of the system, but when someone Googles your name and that first page of search results, that is who you are to the world. Regardless of what you believe you are, that's what you are. And so you can have control over that and adjust your image and control your brand, or you could not. You could let the world just decide what it's going to think or say about you. And so that's the key, really, I think, with brand management is, okay, if you're a business, start thinking like a business. What does a business do? Well, they have a carefully constructed brand, and they have a message, and they know what they represent in the market. They know how they're making money and where their value is. Like, all these different things that are important to think about, you start thinking about when you start thinking about yourself as a business.
So do you think there's psychological aspects to thinking that you are a business, instead of treating yourself as an employee, treating yourself as, even though you might not be, like an independent contractor or something?
Yeah, I think there's definitely a big mental shift. One of the big ones is like you said, like treating yourself like a contractor, right? Because you're doing work for the business, right? And so when you start thinking that way, it's a lot harder to be lazy, right? Because if you're wasting time and you're not doing work, you're not moving forward, you're kind of freeloading off of the business. So you're still incurring all these expenses. I think there's a mindset just in that separation, right? Because we get so wrapped up. We are our jobs sometimes, right? And that's who we are personally. But when you think about yourself as a business, you create kind of this one layer of separation. You say, okay, well, I'm the business who happens to be doing this function which generates this income. How could I do it more efficiently? How could I increase the income that it makes? How could I expand or do these other things? So I think there is definitely a psychological aspect, and you start viewing yourself in a different way when you start separating that out. You are not your job. Your job is a function of what is how you make money, but you are not specifically your job.
Mm-hmm. There's an article that I've written but haven't published yet, some of the secrets of my own success. And one of those things that I always tell developers is fake it till you make it. And applying that to my own path, I had always wanted to be a consultant, an independent contractor. And so just one day I started, instead of saying, oh, my boss, I would just say my client. And that had such a huge impact on the path that I took in the coming months and years. So yeah, definitely it prepares you mentally to be able to do what you need to do. So one thing that I didn't really notice in your in the course was, okay, so you take the developer and you make them successful. We built the brand and things are booming. Do you offer any advice for how to scale once you get to that point?
The biggest thing I'd say that I offer in that advice is just the different areas, right? Because you're not going to be able to focus on all the areas, right? I kind of borrow this from Pat Flynn, Smart Passive Income, this be everywhere, because I think that's a really, really good idea, which basically means that, everywhere someone goes and looks in your niche, they should find you, whether it be in in blog and text at conferences and video and podcasts and magazine articles and books, right? All of these mediums you should kind of try to be, because then that's when the real brand recognition starts to happen. People are like, oh wow, if they've seen you in multiple places, and they're like, well, then you must be the authority in this area. So, when you start out, you're not going to be able to do that. You can't, I mean, heck, just to run simpleprogrammer.com, right? I am in all those areas, and more than half of my week is spent just producing content on blog posts and YouTube videos and podcasts and all that. So if you have a regular job, you're not going to be able to do that and hit all those channels. But as you start to expand out, you're going to be able to hit more of those channels. So I would say that really your scaling factor is hitting more and more of those channels. Maybe you start out with just a blog, and then maybe you say, okay, well, I have kind of an aptitude for doing YouTube videos, so I'll do YouTube videos as well. And then maybe you spread out and find that you can do some podcasts. You can start your own. You can be on podcasts. Then maybe you say, well, maybe I could do a book, or maybe I could go and start speaking at conferences, because all of these things have different circles and have different spheres of influence and reputation building. There's a lot of developers that, for example, Scott Hanselman, right on the .NET side, he's very much in the speaking. He's a conference speaker. He's kind of well known for, and so but if you look and see what books has he written, there's not many. He's got some co-authored books, and that's, but there's other developers who they've written a lot of books, and that's what they're well known for. There's other developers who have a really famous blog, Jeff Atwood at codinghorror.com, right? Just so there's all kinds of areas to expand into, that I think you can always scale this up as you get more and more of your message out, if you reach more and more people.
But I guess when you get to that point, that's kind of a good problem to have, right?
Right, exactly. Yeah, for most developers, like if you're a career developer, right, 90%, you only need one job. So that's the thing I keep on, it's like, okay, but you can get a better job, but you only need one job. So, it's going to expand. You're not going to necessarily need to go so far. You just need to market yourself enough that you're going to be able to get the best job possible.
So is this course geared towards any specific level of developer, or does it apply pretty much across the board to any level of developer at any point in their career?
I would say it applies pretty much to any level of developer at any point in their career. With the side note from the only kind of feedback that I've gotten from someone who said that the course was not useful was someone who was well known in the software development industry already, and they said, "I this is all good information. This is all right, but I already know all this stuff." So yeah, if you're, but again, I think even if you do have somewhat of a reputation, like there's still a lot of stuff in here. So there's probably something that you would find value in, but it's really not geared towards, I mean, the ideal person or it's ideal to start this when you're a beginner, right? If I would have done this kind of stuff, I'm sure if you would have done this kind of stuff when you very first started out, just imagine how far you could be, in such a short time, instead of wasting 10 years, like going through corporate craziness and trying to climb ladders that are worthless, what like so many people do. So there's definitely a huge value for someone who's just starting out. But if you're mid-level, even if you're experienced, especially in those, you're going to see results quicker, because you're going to have a lot more content produced. You're going to be able to magnify your skill a lot more and get out there, and you'll see results immediately. So it really doesn't matter what level. What this course is really this intersection of this. There's this whole marketing world out there, which is not the big brand marketing like Kmart and Starbucks and stuff, but the smaller kind of internet marketing. And this is kind of taking those two circles of software development and joining them together. And there's tons of stuff out there, tons of information on how to do this. And I'm just bringing it into the software development sphere. And so if you're not exposed to that, which most software developers have no clue about this kind of stuff, then I think it's going to provide some good value.
You touched on a point, the comment that you received, the negative feedback. They might have already known everything in the course. And I'm going to say, I knew a lot of the stuff that was in the course already, but I didn't know that I knew. So for example, building a brand. Again, when I was doing all the blog posts and the talks, I didn't realize I was building a brand. So you're just shedding light on things that somebody may already be doing, but they don't realize it or recognize it for what it is. And so in that case, they can take what you teach them and, expose it or take advantage of it in the way that they need to properly. In the on the website, you have a story about yourself where you say at one point you had reached the glass ceiling. I was at the same spot pretty recently, and through interactions with you, I've acquired some tools that I've been using to overcome and break through some of those things that I'm working on. And I would consider myself very successful by my own definition. But that doesn't mean that I'm exempt or immune from the issues that other developers come across. And, to drive that point home, I read an article about Tony Robbins, the, motivational speaker. He built his career doing motivational speaking, but now he advises and mentors $1 million CEOs who run some of the world's top companies. So, no matter where you are in your career, how big you think you are or how big you actually are, there's always somewhere that you can find wisdom and inspiration. And I think that your course, Dev Career Boost, is, like a rocket that's going to take pretty much anybody to that next level.
I hope so. Yeah, that's it's interesting that you mentioned Tony Robbins. He's definitely one of the guys that I kind of had some inspiration in the course as well, too, just because of his success story and what he's doing and that positive impact that you can have just by sharing knowledge. So much. His success is based on sharing knowledge and caring about people and sharing knowledge, and so that's I really hope that it will help developers. So far, I've gotten a lot of good feedback from developers that have done the course. It's a matter of applying it. And you're right about, I think a lot of developers will know about this information, but they don't realize they know it. So kind of the idea of, and even for me, when I started putting this down into an actual actionable form, I understood what I was doing, then I could focus on it more and expand and increase in areas that, if you don't realize that you're building a brand, you may be doing it, but it's really hard to scale that, like you said before. But once you start to realize it and you realize what the components are, then it becomes, okay, then you can be more have more of a methodology behind it.
Yeah, there's a book that I looked at recently. I decided not to read through it. It was called 10% Happier. And the synopsis drew me in because it's an autobiography about a news broadcaster, in public spotlight. And he learned how to do meditation and a few other things. And the whole point was, if the book can improve your life by just 10%, then it's a complete success. So anybody going into this course, if you can get even 10% improvement in your own personal life or your career, that's wonderful. So it's definitely worth the time investment. So where can we go to actually get the course?
Okay, so you can go to, the easiest way is just to go to devcareerboost.com. That's devcareerboost.com, like dev developer, and that's where I have the nice sales page, landing page there. You'll notice a long form sales page, which is a marketing page, and the actual product is at the very bottom. But it's an interesting, marketing. It kind of shows you from the beginning. I think if you look at that page and you're like, well, that's weird, I haven't seen that kind of thing before, that looks a little strange. That's just a preview of how much of the marketing world that we as developers aren't really exposed to. But that's the best way to get in. I can also offer, I wanted to make a point about what you said about the 10% thing, which is kind of related here, which is, kind of the goal of this course is if I could increase your salary, by 10%, which I believe that this course certainly can do for someone who follows the steps in this course, then that's where the kind of the pricing of the course comes in, because the course is a fairly expensive course. It's a $300 course, $299. But the reason why is because if you're making $80,000 a year and you can make a 10% increase, that's $8,000, right? I mean, if you're making $50,000 a year and you get a 10% increase, and that's every year you get that increase. So it's very easy. I mean, even if you get a 1% increase, right, which is certainly not very difficult to do at all, it pays for the course. But yeah, I wanted to price it so that there's that you actually have to make an investment in this, because if you don't follow this, it's not going to benefit you, and there's a huge value there. So yeah, devcareerboost.com. And then what I think I can do for everyone that's listening here today is offer $100 off to make it a little bit more affordable, because I want more people to be able to do the course and get through it. But I would really like to see, the reason why, again, with the pricing is I would like to see people actually go through and do the course and take it seriously. So I'd almost even say, maybe this isn't the best thing that I should do to market it, but if you're not going to seriously do the course and like actually go through the material, don't waste your $200. Like, it's not for you. Like, if you're serious about actually following through and trying to really, boost your career, then yes, then totally worth it. But if you don't waste $200, if you're just going to like download it and think it's going to just immediately help you by downloading it, you're going to have to go through the material and actually put it into action. So that's
yeah, it's like the self-help book. You get it and you read through it, and then, well, my life's still crap. You gotta put in the work. You gotta put in the effort. But no, that's a great point. Putting in the commitment, through monetary means is definitely important. But I've been through the course, and it's definitely worth whatever you end up paying for it, because especially if you're just starting out, or if you've come to a point where you're just like, wow, where do I go? I feel like I'm in a rut. It's really a big piece that's going to add to the fulfillment of whatever career goals that you have. Okay. And then also you do simpleprogrammers.com. And what is that about?
Simpleprogrammer.com is my main hub. You'll notice that's my blog. That's my main branding point on the web. And really, the focus of it, that's also my company name, which is sort of life coaching for software developers. The Tony, I kind of jokingly say I want to be the Tony Robbins for software developers, because I don't think anyone's doing that out there right now. And I've seen the value just helping people and people that have helped me in my career. And I really think that, I take a holistic view. I think that you can't just work on your technical skills, which so many developers try to do, right? If you could, it'll only take you so far. There's all these other areas. Obviously we talked about the marketing yourself area, but there's other areas as well. Fitness is important. Your health, right? This affects how you work and how you perform and how you think about yourself. Your self-confidence, which affects your ability to market yourself. Which all these things, right? They're connected. There's the spiritual aspect of it. Of how's your mind working? How do you think about yourself? And are you positive or negative? There's a huge amount of psychological impact and unique situations for developers, and then there's also the productivity aspect that developers can benefit from certain productivity techniques. So there's just this huge kind of thing, and I try to encompass all of the areas. And I go into a lot of philosophy and things like that, where we can really benefit as human beings, because I believe that working on a developer holistically, like all these different areas that relate to developer's life, is going to be a lot more effective than if I just teach you how to make web pages in Java or Android apps. Like it's valuable, but this other stuff I feel is more valuable. So I kind of shifted my whole focus, and I dedicated everything towards this pursuit now.
Yeah, it's really interesting because, again, it's not how to build Android apps or how to write code, but it's more motivational. And what I like is, and you seem to get in trouble a lot for this, or at least you used to, is you would write these controversial posts, or posts that would be, more aggressive towards the reader. And one of them, I don't remember the exact title, but it was something like, are you really doing all that you could be, or are you just being lazy?
Right.
Or I don't remember the exact title, and I read through it, and I'm like, you know what? I am just being lazy. I could make this one small change and, improve X, Y, Z. And so that's why I like Simple Programmer. And that's why I wanted to bring it up and have you talk about it. So definitely check out the course. Definitely check out simpleprogrammer.com. And you also do a podcast about fitness.
Yeah, there's a podcast called Get Up and Code that I've been doing for a while now, and it's just basically a software development, or a fitness podcast for software developers, specifically targeted. And then I think I mentioned the other one, the Entre Programmers podcast, which is a weekly podcast. It's a long podcast, but it's it's just looking into our mastermind group as we try and build businesses online. And I kind of give all the numbers. Like if you're curious about like how much do I make on courses and how much money do I make every month, and that, it's we all lay it out on the table because we're just honest. Like this is what we're doing. This is how we're using email lists, and so it's kind of a really behind the scenes one.
Excellent. Okay, well, I appreciate your time, John. Thanks for coming on and sharing the course, and definitely thanks for the discount code for the course. I'll be sure to put that in the show notes and a nice big link across the screen here.
Glad to do it. Anytime you want me back, I'm here.
Definitely have ideas for future shows. All right, that's it for this episode. Be sure to take advantage of that discount code that John has given us and subscribe to our channel. And if you like this episode, go ahead and click that like button or leave a comment and let us know what you think. Thanks for watching.